Everyone is a DIYer until they meet a really good financial planner.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA podcast. I'm your co-host, Matthew Jarvis, and with me in person, though, if you're looking at our YouTube channel, which you're welcome to do, the Perfect RIA, you'll notice we're playing around with some camera angles, but we are here in person in Micah's home in Alaska. It's my co-host, Micah Schlansky. Micah, how are you?
Jarvis, it's fantastic. Love having you up here. We've been jamming on some really good stuff, which I always appreciate, right? A little bit of work and a little bit of play is a good thing.
Now, there is, in fact, for those of you who have not spent time in Wasilla, Alaska, there is literally within 50 feet of Micah's window. I'm looking out the window right now. There is what they've told me is a baby moose, but it's the size of a small horse. Like, it's bigger than any deer I've ever seen. So they tell me it's a baby moose, but there is literally outside of Micah's door a moose. So the cliches that I tell about Alaska, some of them may be accurate.
It is definitely moose. It is probably less than a year old, I would guess, by the color of the fur that it has. Yeah, we haven't seen Mama this morning, but we saw a couple bulls the other day too, just milling around our area, which is fantastic. So meat for the winter.
I love it. Well, speaking of meat for the winter, today we want to talk about a one-page financial plans, which is something like surge meetings. It's become a phrase that's getting thrown around the industry. There's even people that have written entire books about it and then forgot to include any examples of a one-page financial plan. But we want to talk about this because several of the lead advisors on our team, they've been meeting with new prospects coming from retirement tax services, coming from planning your federal retirement. How do you meet with these prospects? How do you demonstrate value, especially, Micah, when somebody says, hey, I'm a DIYer?
You know, and that's one of the things is before you go into a meeting, you really have to set some expectations for yourself about what is your primary goal with the meetings. So one of the things I tell my team all the time, our goal for the meeting is to deliver massive value. Now, as we said on other podcasts, you really can't lead the meeting with telling the client you're going to deliver massive value, because what does that even mean,
Yeah.
right? So in my world, what that's going to mean is I'm going to answer every question I can within that hour, within that initial context in that meeting. Now, there's some questions I just can't answer inside of an hour, right?
Perfect.
It's going to require a little bit more time, but anything that I can, I'm going to in that time period because I want to deliver massive value. I don't get really caught up if I'm looking at them. I used to in the past, right?
Sure.
I used to look at them and says, oh my gosh, it's a bunch of Vanguard funds. They're probably a DIYer. They probably don't do da-da-da. I says, no, that's not my job, is to sort that out. And by the way, this other DIYer delegates 99.9999999% of everything in their life, just like the rest of us.
Yes.
Right? I didn't make my clothes. I didn't build my house, right? The computer, the podcast material, like all of these things I did not create. I get to use them. I get to purchase them with our beautiful system of capitalism. And that's the same thing as the DIYer. And so he is going to evaluate it and say, am I a good trade for value versus money? And that's all this meeting is about. And there's some people that says, you know what, no matter what we say, they're really going to be focused on doing it themselves. That's okay.
Yeah.
My job is still to deliver massive value. But for most of the people that want to come in, they want some extra help. They may not know it yet, though.
Yeah, and let's pull on this thread of what is value. So it's easy to confuse value with volume, right?
Yeah.
This is where we get these 100-page Monte Carlo financial plans. This is where we have advisors that struggle and say, hey, my meeting was an hour and a half, it was 2 hours, it was 3 hours long, right? We confuse value with volume. When I'm walking into that meeting, Micah, to your point, I'm trying to deliver massive value. For me, part of that criteria is advice that they're going to take action on. So a Post-it note I used to always keep on my computer. I like to keep a Post-it note reminder of things. You and I have talked about this on other episodes. Right. One of them was, my job is to help clients become aware of problems they didn't know they had and show them the solution, right? So an example of this could be, hey, what's your strategy for claiming Social Security? I don't have a strategy for claiming Social Security. Great, we're going to need a strategy for claiming Social Security. Now, some listeners might think that's too simplistic. We need a 10-page report. We need a cost, time, value of money. Nope, I need to make them aware that they need a strategy for Social Security that's going to tie into their estate planning, their cash flow, their guardrails, their investment strategy, all of these things. I need to make them aware of that in a way they take action on. If they don't take action, if they say, that's interesting, or hey, I'm going to do that myself, I've missed the game. I have not delivered value.
Jarvis, 100% the case. So let's say it another way. Let's talk about what our job is not.
Oh, yes.
Right? Our job is not to talk about investments.
Nope.
Our job is not to focus on estate planning. Our job is not to get tax planning done. Our job is not to help clients with retirement. Now, you might be thinking, holy crap, Micah, that is exactly my job. No,
what else is there? Yeah.
Right? Those may be components of your job, but your job is to meet with the client and help them take action to achieve their goals. Please note in there, take action is the key part of this, because if you're not focused on the client getting actionable, it doesn't matter how great you are in investments or estate planning or risk management or whatever those other categories are. If the client takes no action, there is no value.
This is where we need to watch not just our head trash, but our victim language. It's easy to come out of a meeting, and we've worked with our lead advisors on this. Hey, that guy was a DIYer, that gal was a DIYer, that person was fee sensitive, that's why we didn't work together. No, you were not able to deliver compelling value. End of story, because it's impossible that they have everything figured out. Yes, I get hypothetically, maybe there's someone somewhere. We've never met them. In fact, Micah, you and I have spent time with very well-known financial figures in the industry and outside the industry in the consumer space. And at a glance, off the cuff, we were able to find 10, 15 different things they were completely missing, hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax savings left on the table, despite being a figurehead in the advice space. And so there is no one who has this all figured out. And so again, if they say, hey, I'm going to just do this myself, well, why have you never done it before? And if they say, hey, I'm really sensitive about fees, it's because value is in question.
Yeah, it's very much so. Now, you're going to get some part where there's maybe some ego in play. They've always said they do it themselves, and so it's going to be there, sure, right? But we got to solve for what are the clients that you're going to work really well with, and what are we going to do? I'm not going to bring on every single person I meet as a client. They're maybe not ideal. Maybe it's on the personality, right? Remember, we got those 3 Ps, personal, productive, and profitable. Sometimes those people just aren't personable. They're not someone I want to have a long-term relationship with, and we're just going to pass on that. All right. So let's kind of put those people in a different camp.
Aside, sure.
And let's go ahead and look at the people that we can deliver massive value for. They have a great personality. They're profitable. That means we're delivering enough value to them. They're willing to separate their hard-earned money in order to pay us because the value we provide. That's what we're asking somebody to do here, right? And trust us pretty much with their entire life savings. So I'm totally fine with people that are a little skeptical about trusting a financial advisor with their entire life savings, as you should be, right? I should be able to answer your questions. I shouldn't get irritated. We should have a great conversation. If any of those things come up, if you ask me a question, I get irritated, that should be a red flag for consumers.
Yeah, it really should be. Well, and we also have to remember that society at large, right, financial journalism at large is telling them, do not hire a financial planner. Only a dummy would hire a financial planner. So yes, they're trusting us with their life savings, one of the most important, at least financial decisions they've ever made in their life. And they're going contrary to everything they've been told, which is, hey, there are no good financial planners, probably because most financial planners don't deliver value. But again, it's not a small mountain to climb.
No, it's really not. So, Travis, let's talk about this. We talked a little bit about, what things not to do. But this podcast is not focusing on action items of what not to do.
Yeah, that's right,
it's not focusing on action items of what to do. So what things should we focus on? Like, how do we pivot this from the traditional viewpoint? I'm going to say traditional viewpoint as people are saying, hey, we need a 12,000-page report. Okay, that's a little extensive, right? But we need a 100-page financial plan. We need like all of these other things. What do we transition to? How do we best use this?
Yeah, most financial planning seems to be centered around Monte Carlo analysis, which is all just probability of success.
I'm sorry, can I stop you right there?
Please.
A Monte Carlo analysis is not a financial plan.
No, it's not a financial plan.
Correct. It is a risk-return potential theoretical ratio of an investment portfolio. Right. Maybe mortality is encompassed inside there.
Maybe.
Like I said, maybe, right? It does not. I have not seen any of the software out there that adequately addresses risk management when someone actually dies or not. There's some crappy ways it solves it, not in reality. They do zero in estate planning, virtually zero in tax planning, crap cash flow management that's there. So no, that's not, sorry, a little hot button for me.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where, and we've talked about this many times, right? Say, hey, 1-page financial plan, that's not a financial plan. That's not comprehensive, right? Perfect. Do the highlighter test. Take whatever you're calling a financial plan and highlight any lines that are specific, actionable advice. Highlight those specific actionable advice and then compare it to the specific actionable advice that's on a 1-page financial plan, which is, by the way, trademarked by the Perfect RIA. And see how many there are. There's not that many, right? If it doesn't say, hey, you need to convert 23,000 to a Roth conversion or in a Roth IRA, we have an issue, right? You need a strategy for doing Roth conversions in retirement. So we need to outline that. We also need to highlight what would make sense to a lay person. 73% probability of success does not make sense to a lay person. What they see there is, what is that, a C grade? I got a 27% chance of not retiring. This is terrible, right? We need to do this in lay person language, and that's where the 1-page financial plan excels. How are we going to minimize risk? How are we going to accomplish your goals? How are we going to make cash flow? All needs to be in there. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up here. In their language.
It's so emotional, yeah.
That's right, you're really emotional here.
You know, Jarvis, the other thing that I would love to add to that as well, it has to be trackable going forward, right? Inside of this one-page plan, you have to have a tool or talk about tools that are going to be used that how do we make sure they're on track for retirement? Because one of the questions I get, I'm sure you get the same one, is been working with a client for X amount of years. Micah, am I still on track to stay retired, right? How do we help answer those questions? And again, I'm not a Monte Carlo fan. I've been there, done that, right? I always felt like it was the only tool that I had. And I was like, oh, it's the industry says we got to use, so I think I'm going to do it. I don't think it's like super bad, but then we kind of found another light. Okay, that may be a different episode on why buckets disappear, but this is going to be a question on the one-page plan though. So how do we put that inside of a one-page financial plan?
Yeah, so I always want to start with the client's goals. And Micah, you and I have recorded an entire webinar series on this inside the Backstage Pass. We've just recorded another masterclass on the topic. Right. So I really want to go through it from a question standpoint. So I always want to lead, we've talked about this before. When they came in, what did they say their goal is, right? When I said, hey, what brings you in here today? How can I be of most assistance to you today? Whatever they said, that's what we're going to talk about. In fact, we just did one last week for a prospective client, and they said, hey, one of my top concerns is paying fees. I'm really concerned about paying fees. And the advisor on our team said, oh, Matthew, this person's a DIYer. It's not a good fit. That's not what I heard at all. I am concerned about paying fees. Now, ironically enough, we pull into their portfolio, and they have all sorts of like American funds in there, which is not a slight to American funds, but that's not a fee-sensitive investment. Yeah. But we put that right under their goals, right? She wanted to be able to retire next year. All right, Bob and Sue, we always call them Bob and Sue. Have Sue able to retire next year. Item number 2, reduce unnecessary fees. I want to hit that right on the head because I always want to hit fees right on the head. But that was the words they used in their language. And if I miss that because I say you have a 73% probability of success, but I haven't covered the fees, I missed the boat.
You know, Jarvis, this is another element that's maybe outside the one-page financial plan, or maybe it is because we put those in the highlights of them, but you have to address the elephant in the room.
Yes.
What's the elephant in the room? The client's questions.
Yes.
Right? Hidden or direct, right? Those hidden questions, man, when you can source those out, those are gems, but you really want to get out those questions the client has and just nail them right out to begin with, because you want to, the client's thinking about them anyways.
Yep.
You need to highlight them to make sure when they're going to be addressed and how they're going to be addressed is really, really critical. And if you don't do that, they're really not listening to anything else you're saying.
Which goes to the big ask, right?
Yes.
So the goal of the one-page financial plan is to make it clear to them, to make an educated and informed decision about our firm if it makes sense to work together. So the question that's an elephant in the room is, when's the ask going to come? So right away, and we'll talk about this in the sales process, not today's episode, but at the beginning, if I'm presenting a one-page financial plan, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, just like I explained, this is our executive summary. I used to do long plans, but no one read them but me, and I could say I really love them. Everybody else asked for the executive summary. If it's okay with you, today we're going to go through this executive summary. At the end of this meeting, I'm going to ask if you'd like to meet again so that you can become a client. Is that okay with you? Now we have the entire meeting to go through our process, and they know, and by the way, now I am on the hook for it, right? If I thought, hey, I'm going to welch on this thing, I'm going to get scared in the end and not ask for the business, I told them I was going to. I have to.
Yeah. Boy, I really love that, putting your own commitment right inside of there, right? Okay, so a one-page financial plan is super, super critical to outline. Now, Jarvis, a couple of questions. Does it have to be one page?
It doesn't. No, I mean, sure, God needed 2 tablets for the 10 Commandments, so there's precedence for 2 pages, and there is some thought that maybe he wrote on both sides of the tablets. We'll leave that for another day, another
I think
debate.
Another episode might be the disdain in your voice that he used 2 tablets. We're going to have to address that at some time. That is not today's podcast, but we're going to go to that one too.
Room for improvement, right? We all. If you heard lightning come through the window, that's what that's about. It does not have to be one page. The reason I like one page is it forces me to be concise. I find as soon as I break into the second page, now I fill 2 pages. And if I break into 3, I fill 3, and now 5, and now 10. If I have to keep it to 1, it keeps me focused on the bullet points that are most important. What we get sucked into sometimes is thinking I need to tell them every way to improve. And this came up when we did the Value Smackdown. 30 minutes isn't enough for the Value Smackdown because I need to outline every single thing. No, I need to outline the next round of steps. In fact, I love to say when I'm presenting it, hey, this is what we call the low-hanging fruit. This is what we found on the first round. Imagine what we'll find if we work together on an ongoing basis. I just need to get them to take the next step. I need them to make a will, not an irrevocable trust that's intentionally defective in Arizona or whatever we're trying to do. I need them to take the next step.
Yes, that's the most important part, right? Like I say this with clients all the time, especially when we talk about cash flow planning or financial planning, et cetera.
Yes.
Is what's the best cash flow plan? What's the best budget? Guess what? It's the same as the best workout, and it's the same as the best diet. The one you're going to do.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
Right? Like I don't really care about the different softwares. I don't care about any of that stuff. Which one are you actually going to do at the end of the day? And Jarvis, in my experience, the simpler I can make it, the more action I get from my clients. Do you see anything wrong with that?
No, what do they call that in science? It's called Occam's
razor.
Yeah, razor. The other thing I like about doing the one-page financial plan, and sometimes we call this like sanitation issues, right? So advisors will say, well, I'm trustworthy. Cool. Are there any advisors advertising that they're not trustworthy? Well, there are. It's in the fine print. But consumers don't see that. There used to be a firm that will not be named today that had an entire law that said they could specifically not be. Anyway, that's its own thing.
Moving on.
But if I can show them things that no one else has shown them, no one else has done a one-page summary. No one else has been really clear on these things. And so I want to be concise. I want to be telling them things that they haven't heard anywhere else.
Jarvis, I absolutely love that. Now, I think one of the ways in order that you need to do this is you need to have the time in order to be focused on one-page financial plans, right? That doesn't mean we need 100 hours to do it, but you need to focus your time on what you do best. That also means we need to bring in team members to work on things that maybe isn't the best suited for our time.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're going to have our team members, our internal team, or it doesn't have to be internal actually, do the net worth statement, right? Gather the documents together, gather the stuff. But this counts for all areas in your practice, which is why we're excited to have partnered with Belay Virtual Assistants. As listeners know, I've been working with Belay for the last 7 months now. Zach, my virtual assistant from Belay. In fact, Micah, just this week, I had Zach go through, we've been recording master classes, a master class on one-page financial plans, a master class for lead advisors, a master class with retirement tax services on Backdoor Roth. Zach went through, did a spreadsheet of all the files, loaded all the files into our transcription software. So I had transcriptions, organized it. So then when it came time for me to work through those things, they were all in a spreadsheet with links to them and so forth. And so if you don't have a virtual assistant, and we talked about this with Trisha, the CEO of Belay, if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant, right? Everybody has one. It's just if it's you or not. If you don't, text the letters RIA, Registered Investment Advisor, RIA, to 55123 to get a free copy of Belay's ebook on how to better use your virtual assistant. Because, Micah, to your point, delegation is key here. If you're answering the phones, if you're building this spreadsheet, you're not delivering massive value.
Yeah, and if you have assistant or not, one of the things I'm always trying to do is up my game. And so text RIA to 55123, whether you're an assistant or not, especially if you do not. Let's get more information. How do you better utilize that virtual assistant? Now, let's also be clear. Any assistant you have at some point is going to be virtual. Whether they're still in the office,
that's true.
You're not going to be there.
No.
That then becomes a virtual relationship.
Yeah.
How are you going to monitor that? How are you going to make sure that they're still working? Like all of these things actually come up in today's environment. So being a better understanding, better steward of kind of the resources you need to have to implement it better, makes your team successful. The more successful my team is, the more my clients are taken care of.
Yeah, that's a great point because just like you can say, hey, I do a one-page financial plan, or I have an assistant, but if that assistant isn't effective, and if your one-page financial plan is not compelling enough that people are saying, hey, I see the errors in my ways, I see what I've been missing, I see the value you bring, we're missing the boat here.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to jump in back a little bit to the one-page financial plan concept of it, right? So we talked about, does it have to be one page or not? And I know the forcing mechanism, I think, is what you're going for. So I pull on that thread a little bit. So for me, the forcing mechanism isn't one page because we have a giant logo and I like it. It's more about, okay, here are the 5 areas of financial planning: estate planning, risk management, retirement income, investments, and taxes. Those are 5 areas that we want to hit. And do I have bullet points on each one? Not do I have a dissertation on each one. Do I have bullet points that are, again, is exact to that client and talking about actionable information. So if I'm going through some bullet points and because of maybe their estate plan needs or maybe because of whatever reason or business planning, et cetera, it bumps onto the second page, I'm not crying about it. It's not the end of the world. But I've never had one go to 3.
Yeah, and the key here, like everything we talk about in the Perfect RIA, is be intentional.
Yes.
Right? So if you say, hey, I need 2 pages, awesome. You need 3 pages? You need 4? You've missed it. You're not being intentional. You're spewing information. That's how these plans get to be 100 pages long. Oh, we should also do a 40-year Monte Carlo, a 50-year Monte Carlo. That's not being intentional. You're being lazy. There's that old cliche that was attributed to Mark Twain. Hey, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have time. Same with a financial plan. Hey, I would have done a concise financial plan, but I didn't have time. I didn't want to put the energy. I just wanted to spew and hope that something would catch.
You know, I want to pull on that thread again, right? You're saying something so beautiful right here. It takes energy, time, and effort to be able to create a one-page financial plan.
It does.
It is relatively mindless and delegatable to have your assistant load everything in a financial planning software and to have it spew out the reports, and they're kind of looking at things back and forth. It is much more challenging to write out a one-page financial plan, and that's why so few people do it, in my opinion. Is it actually it's not more complex, but it is harder.
It is harder. And it is very difficult to stare at a blank sheet of paper. I was working with Alan, one of the great advisors on our teams, and I was doing one-page financial plan with him. And so we have the bullet points, right? Those areas, retirement income, risk management, all these things. And for him, it was really daunting, as how could it not be? So then the first thing we did, we have a template that are questions to ask yourself in each of these areas. Yes. How can this client pay less in taxes, both now and in the future? Are there any what tax opportunities are they missing? So you're cueing yourself with questions. And then the other thing that's absolutely invaluable, and these are all over the Backstage Pass, is to see real world examples. What is Micah telling a client about risk management? What is he telling him? Literally, what do the bullet points say on his estate documents? And I don't want to say copy that because that's a little too on the cheek, right? You've got to adapt it for your terminology, for your clients. But it's so much easier to say, oh, I would say it this way. Perfect. But now I have things to draw from versus I'm staring at a blank. It takes a lot of work to stare at a blank piece of paper and make content.
Yeah, another downside, if you just copy my work, it's probably going to be misspelled. So you're going to fix those. You're going to fix those. All right. Another thing that I just love about the one-page financial plan, and I'm going to tie this right into the dishwasher rule.
Yes.
Right? I love getting credit for the things that we're doing with clients because why not? Right? Let's make sure clients know the value that we have. Now, we've all had this experience. You work with a client for X period of time, and they come in like, what have we done? Like, what do you mean, what have we done?
We've done
right?
everything.
We've restructured your estate planning. We took care of survivor needs, right? We took care of your long-term care planning. We 86'd your insurance because it was only for $12 a day. We got you into like all of these things that we've done. But the client's like, but what have we done? Because you've done it over a period of time and the client forgets.
Yeah.
Jarvis, that's one of the things I love about the one-page plan is its trackability.
Yes.
We get to go back there and see, hey, look at all these great things that we have done for you. And you know what? Maybe estate planning is still outstanding. Hey, you haven't made those decisions on your survivor benefits and we really need to do that, right? But it's going to constantly show what we're done for the clients. But that has to tie into the next step going forward. If you're just using it as getting a one-time financial plan done, that's how long your relationship's going to be, is 1 year, whatever that initial time period is, and you're done. In fact, we were actually chatting with somebody who hired a, quote, financial planner the other day. We were talking to them the other day. They hired a financial planner a while ago. And we said, well, do you have a financial planner? And their comment was, well, kind of. I'm like, what do you mean, kind of?
Kind of?
Are you like kind of pregnant as well? They're like, you are or you aren't. There's no middle ground with this. Do you have a financial planner or not? And they were like, well, I hired them and they did a little bit what I wanted to, and now I'm really not seeing them anymore. Okay, so the answer is no, you do not have a financial planner, right? And if you just hired them for a one-time project, that actually probably wasn't a financial planner anyways. Yeah. And so what I love about the financial plan is it needs to tie into this ongoing relationship about what are we doing next. That's where value adds tie in. I know this isn't a value, but this is one-page financial plan. It is a value add, but this isn't a value add podcast we're talking about right now. Mm-hmm. But one-page financial plans have to tie into future value adds and say this is how we're going to keep things on track into retirement.
Yeah, that's why I'm really opposed to doing just one-off financial planning arrangements. Now, this is not about charging to do a financial plan or not. That's a discussion that we'll have, and we have very strong beliefs on that. But that's as part of a process to become a full client. So if I meet with somebody and I ask them, I say, hey, if we can show you how to deliver value, if it really makes sense to you to hire us, would you consider hiring us? And they say, no, I'm always going to do it myself. Great, hard stop right there. Because there's a couple of issues here. Me presenting them a plan, 1 page, 500 pages, that's not implemented, no value.
What's the point?
No, and the other part of that is there's just not a fee I can charge for that makes it worth my time to get it all the way implemented. And there's another place I love the one-page financial plan, right? We're taking this one step at a time, and I'm letting them know, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, here are all the things that we've found, and if we decide to work together, we're going to take care of these. And that way, if they push back, Micah, on fees, saying, well, what will you do next? Great news. We've always found more work to do, but if we don't, we'll have done all this work. We can part ways as friends, and I'll even refund the last quarter's fee as a gesture of good faith. In other words, you have nothing to lose. We're going to work together as long as you want to work together, and as soon as you feel like we've done everything there is for us to do, we can part ways as friends. And then I smile really big, and I say, I do have to let you know that never happens. right? People stay with us their whole life with very few exceptions, but you're welcome to. As soon as you think the value is not there, not only are you welcome to go, I will help you go because I'm not here to collect a fee. I'm here to transform your life.
Yeah, I love it. Now, Jarvis, over the years, I've gotten good advice from lots of people.
Sure.
But I've only got excellent advice from those that have been there and that have done this, right? And I know this is something that we preach a lot, and we get a little preachy on this aspect of it. But, I read a lot of books on, I competed in martial arts for a long period of time. I read a lot of books about martial arts, but it's like Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face, right? Until you step into that ring and you know what it's like to compete, you don't have the same training experience, right, as a coach that hasn't been in that same perspective. Now, coaches can still give me a lot of great advice, but it's different than being in the ring. And that's the same thing as like being with a client. And the reason I'm going to bring this up with you is, we bring on other advisors, we kind of watch them and whatnot. And sometimes we're bringing on younger advisors into the team, which I love to do, right? Got to train them, et cetera. They come in with a lot of bravado into it, right? That says, hey, look, I've got my CFP. I've done all this stuff, right? Kind of stroking the back, says, I get into this client meeting. It's fantastic. Then they get into the client meeting and the pressure comes in. Now, if you don't know what pressure I'm talking about, you haven't been in client meetings, or rewind the clock, I should say, because I don't really feel a lot of pressure now when I go into client meetings because I've been doing it for 23 years. But rewind the clock, you had that pressure. It was there. And it's like, oh, crap, how am I going to answer this question? How am I going to communicate with them? What are all of these things going on? And that's one of the things our younger advisors really feel, right, is saying, oh, there's so many things that are happening. Now, why do I bring this up? Not only do you need to get advice from those who have had that pressure and how do they deal with it, this is what the one-page plan is going to help you with because it gives you a guided structure to help out with. Instead of some generic, here's a Monte Carlo analysis, let me explain look, here's every variable that will never happen in your life, right? You could go down that route, or you could do the one-page financial plan to say, here are exact things that we've seen with other clients, or I've worked with other advisors that have clients that have had these experiences, and here's the strategies that we need to come up with to make sure that you're taken care of. Now, all of a sudden, it's very unique and personable to them.
Yeah, we have to remember, and I like those examples you gave, that what we do is incredibly difficult. Otherwise, our profession wouldn't need to exist. If it was easy to make good financial decisions, if it was easy to be objective about your money, we wouldn't need to exist as a profession. And if it were easy to deliver value to clients, we wouldn't see all these advisors washing out and becoming experts in the industry, right? They would all be making a ton of money. It is very difficult. And you mentioned the martial arts example, right? It's not that different than saying, hey, I'm going to throw you into the octagon with a top MMA fighter. I'm not going to step into that ring. I got to get my face pounded in. But if I need to step into that ring, and it's not because it's adversarial with a client, this isn't us against them. It's us against apathy. It's really hard to make financial choices. I'm on the same side of the ring as the client, and we're together going after things that are against their financial future. It is hard to do, and I want to learn from someone who's been in the ring successfully. I want to learn from the person that's holding the gold belt and not the person who got their face pounded in.
And that's why one of the reasons when we went to last year, actually, we went to Tim Kennedy's school,
Tim Kennedy's
right?
Training,
And one of the things after Tim Kennedy, you worked out for all this, then they brought in the professionals at the end of the day. And I think, was it 10 rounds or 8 rounds?
It was a lot.
It was a lot. It was exhausting. It was back to back.
We're talking professionals. Like, these guys are all like trophied MMA people, special like this is not like professionals, like they were working at Starbucks and they brought them in here.
No, they're real fighters. And they brought in, now they were putting kid gloves on to work with us.
Sure.
But I went right up to Tim and I was like, hey, I want to roll with you. He was like, absolutely, man. And now I had no illusions on what was about to transpire, but the ability to be able to roll with him and to see, I mean, he's putting me in stressful positions. He's not at any stress whatsoever. No. So I got something I have to work on. But he's able to roll with me and put these in these positions. But then I was able to, he put me in a couple of them and I said, hey, what do I do?
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm struggling here and you're just conquering everything. I was like, I need a little bit of tips here. Like when you're in this position, he's like, all right, so when you're in this position, this is what you do. Now, you couldn't ask that in a real fight, but now I'm in a real experience with somebody who has put me in a position they don't like to be in. And I'm like, help me work out of this. Now, he didn't like all of a sudden, make it super easy for me, but he gave me obstacles and challenges to go through, right? And that's the same thing you need to have experience in the financial planning. While I don't often put our other advisors in headlocks, maybe we should. But while that often doesn't happen, it's, hey, I got in this difficult position. What do I do now? And you got to have someone that's been there before in your camp to work through that.
Now, the other part of that story is while Tim Kennedy, we'll have to have Tim on the podcast.
Hey, that wasn't me. That was the next guy he was rolling with. Yeah, so I know where you're going with this. Wait. It was so not.
Wasn't he FaceTiming when he was?
No, it was the next guy because I took a picture of the next guy.
That's right, the next guy.
Yeah, the wrestling coach.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. This guy that had wrestled collegiately, was a coach. He was a big dude.
Right.
Tim Kennedy's got him just in the pain hold, and this guy's struggling for all he's worth. And Kennedy's like, he's on his phone like, all right, so this is the double reverse knee chokehold thingy. I just want to say hi to all my followers. And this guy's struggling. He's a big dude. He's like, and I just want to shout out. Like, that's a little difference, which... not to be too shameless of a plug, that's why we created the Backstage Pass.
Yes.
That's why we do our Invictus Masterminds. In fact, one of our Invictus members who came to our last mastermind, our next one's end of September, you can still come and join us. He said, Jarvis, Micah, I didn't know that such an event was possible. I didn't know I could step into the ring, I'm adding some of my words in here, and have that kind of access to what was possible. I've never seen that happen. And so while it's fun to joke about, putting people in chokeholds, whether that's literally or figuratively when we're doing extreme accountability, these make a big difference. When you can step into the ring and you can train with people that are the best at what they do, that's incredible. So that's for our Invictus members. We do that last week of September. We're doing that in combination with the Retirement Tax Services Tax Summit, which, again, talk about a chance to step into the ring with people who know taxes in the real world, not taxes on a white paper, taxes on like, how do I get a client to do a $300,000 Roth conversion? In fact, that's one of our presentations from our friend Michael Henley, who helps people see the reason for doing massive Roth conversions, where other advisors are, well, can we do like a $12,000? He's like, yeah, let's do $300,000. That's how good he is at what he does.
I absolutely love it. All right, this podcast is all about action items and taking action. So one, make sure you're joining us for the RTS Tax Summit. Make sure you're joining us for Backstage Pass and Invictus membership, right? This is about changing the way financial planning is done.
Yes.
That is what we're focused on, right? It's about how do we add more value, and that's the community you should be a part of. Make sure you're joining with that and helping it improve and make this better.
Yeah, really do. Reach out to us. You send an email to Lifestyle, the Perfect RIA. Tracy can get you hooked up and get that all set up. Another action item, Micah, I would give is you need to find a proven examples, of what works in the ring, what works in the client meeting. Now, unfortunately, I'm not aware of many of these. We have a bunch of them in the Backstage Pass. There are not many people who are really good at what they do in the industry who are willing to share their work. That's just not the culture we have yet in the industry, but that's part of our commitment. We bring together advisors who are really good at what they do, and we show our work.
And by the way, we talked to some really rock star advisors, and now every time I think about that, I think of the Super Bowl commercial, and I can't say that.
Stop saying you're a rock
Anyways,
star.
You're not a rock star. Some really good advisors, and one of the things that they say is, why would I share this?
Yeah.
Right? What's the benefit to me? Because then they see the way that we share this. And look at all the hate that you guys get for throwing this stuff out there. Yeah. Why would I step out there and do that? I'm just going to service my clients. Fair enough. Our mission is to change the way financial planning is done. So that means we're going to take some heat for it. And on that note, I want you to say, take a look at your entire prospect process. Yes. This is your next action item. Mm-hmm. Take a look at your entire prospect process and say, how can I simplify this? That's going to require more work, by the way. I didn't say make it easy. I said simplify it. How do you simplify this for your clients, for your prospects, etc.?
Yeah, let us know where you're getting stuck on your prospect process. Send an email to Lifestyle, the Perfect RIA. We're in the process of detailing that out, potentially doing a masterclass on that. Last action item, this is a quick favor request. Early on in the podcast, episode 15, actually, I went back and checked. We had a mutual friend of ours, an old wholesaler, Michael Appleby, come on and do confessions.
A former wholesaler. Are we going to call him old? We'll see him tomorrow. So
I will see him. He listens to the show. Great guy. He was a real mentor, but we did a segment, Confessions of a Wholesaler, where he said, here's what of all the advisors I saw, the ones that crushed it did this, and the ones who failed did this. So we want to do that episode again. If you have a wholesaler who delivers value to you, and we don't mean golf clubs, or I guess I don't do golf clubs anymore, golf balls, let us know who that is. Send an email to Lifestyle Perfect RA. We'd love to have them on the show. We'll, of course, talk about whatever service they represent, but love to hear what they see works and what doesn't work.
Awesome. Jarvis, as always, I love it. Listeners, it's all about taking action. Make sure you go out and take action. Give us 5 stars. And until next time, happy planning.
Happy planning.
Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice.